You're listening to The Law of Lift with Dr. Lawrence Chatters. Real stories, powerful insights, and weekly inspiration to help you rise above life's challenges. Let's lift off with Dr. Lawrence Chatters on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
What's going on, Lincoln, Nebraska? It's The Law of Lift with Dr. Lawrence Chatters, and it's just exciting to be with you all today. I'm really excited about the episode today. Today, it is just me. I don't actually have any guests today. I'm just kind of doing this on my own, and there's a reason for that. You know, I really wanted to take some time to reflect today, and I want to turn the lens inward, and I want you all to understand some of the things that I've learned since starting this show back in July. And I also wanted you to just hear a little bit about what's been going on in my life and where things are for me. Because again, you know, the reason for the show was just wanting to provide stories of uplift for people who are listening and provide people with hope and some inspiration so that as they're going through their daily lives, which all of us can experience our challenges and our struggles, we can have something to look forward to as far as somebody else's story of overcoming adversity. And those are always things that really provide me with a lot of motivation. It's just hearing someone else's story, understanding that they were able to overcome challenges and adversity. And so that has also been something that I've been able to draw from. And so, but honestly, you know, this is pre-recorded. And the reason it's pre-recorded is that this Sunday, when my show traditionally will be, the nonprofit that I have called Visionary Youth, we will actually be doing our annual Thanksgiving event where we give away free turkeys and bags of groceries to people who need it. And this year, I have to be there because we have over 1,200 turkeys that we're going to be giving away. It's going to be huge. I mean, I don't have to tell you all that the need for something like this is greater than ever. And there's a lot of people who are experiencing challenges right now. And so, you know, when I think about going into doing an event like that I'll be at actually while this show is airing, and shout out to St. Methodist Church where we always do this event, and all of our volunteers for Visionary Youth, some amazing people in the community that come forth and help us. But when I think about this event, I always think about, you know, you see the people who are there getting the food and you see how appreciative they are. And we actually have a really neat process that we have at our events where not only do they walk through the space and pick up their food and everything, but they don't ever actually have to carry their bag. We have volunteers there that carry the bag for them. We get to serve them and make sure that they have a VIP experience as they're walking through, grabbing the stuff that they need, and then heading to their cars. And so what I always think of is that's the person there that is in the space that has, you know, found the time to present themselves to get the stuff. But there's a lot of other people on the other end of that experience that are going to benefit from it. And I always think about the young people who, again, didn't choose who their parents are, their circumstances, who are going to have the opportunity to have a great Thanksgiving as a result of folks coming to pick up the food. And so it's just amazing to think about those folks on the other side of it that get the opportunity to benefit from it, and the people who are courageous enough to present themselves to come and get the food and then take that back home. We all show leadership in our own ways. And so it's always neat for me to see that, see people that have shown up to volunteer for us, escorting them around through the process, and then watching, you know, as they serve those folks that are there, and then they take that home. So really excited about that. And that's at St. Methodist Church today, essentially, when this will air. And so really excited about that. But back to this reflective show today. You know, when I first came up with this idea, honestly, it was at the kitchen table with my wife. It was back in early July. And the concept was, you know, really this thought process about, you know, I love airplanes. Like, that's always been something for me that has brought me great joy. Is just airplanes, flying, everything flying. When I was a kid, my dad was in the Air Force, and so we grew up around fighter jets. Got the opportunity to be on bases from New Mexico to North Carolina to Florida to Germany, where fighter planes were stationed, and planes in general, because my dad provided flight pay for pilots. And so that was his main job in the military. We were always around pilots. And so I grew up around airplanes and aeronautics in general. And so I've always loved planes, and I've always loved this concept of flight, because when you think about flight, it's crazy, like this multi-1,000-pound, basically multi-ton piece of equipment going fast enough that it can actually take off the ground, and that's always been something that's like just, really enthralled me, is just this idea of lift, because it's such a very powerful pressure and concept of physics, that when you think about this major thing that happens for something to lift off, it's a lot, right? It's speed, it's wind, it's lift, it's all these different concepts. So I'm sitting at the table and I'm just like, gosh, we talk every morning pretty much over coffee, and I'm just like, maybe I should do a show. I would like to do a show where I talk about how people have taken off in their life, and call it the law of lift. And it's just a concept, right? Like this idea that we all go through things and we all have to figure out our way out of those things and overcome adversity. And then we lift off out of those challenges and adversities, and we take off and we fly. And flight, as amazing as it is just as amazing and positive as people in their life overcoming things and being able to like move forward. And so, I had that idea, and we talked a little bit more about it. She was like, yeah, it sounds like a really cool idea. I love the name. And then I just reached out to DP and said, hey, what do you think about the concept of the show? And he was like, yeah, it's a great idea. Why don't we do it? And that was really the beginning of this show back in July of 2025. And so what was so shocking about that whole experience for me was just, first of all, being in a position at that time that I could have access to somebody who could entertain the idea, having the opportunity to actually follow through with the idea, and also having the background and the training to create something on a weekly basis that hopefully is reasonable to listen to and something that does provide people with inspiration. With my background being a counseling psychologist, I am just a curious person. I love to ask questions. I love to learn about people. I love to understand the context within which people live and what really shapes their thinking. And so, in my own way, I get to really put the people that come on my show through a bit of a process of just asking some questions and learning about them and better understanding what makes them tick. And to me, that's really exciting, because I love the human experience. I think that we all have such unique experiences. We're so unique as human beings. We see the world from different perspectives. We've experienced different things. We grow up in different places. We come from different backgrounds and cultures and experiences. And, this is really the opportunity for people who have never heard from a person from a different perspective than theirs to hear about that perspective. And it's just really neat that I get the opportunity to do that. So this today is my reflection show, where I get to talk about what that's been like, the process of creating a show and actually like following through with it. There's been some odd things, that have happened over the course of the 16 episodes or so that I've had, some interactions with people that have been different. And as I talk about the development of the show, I also wanted to talk about the fears and doubts that I had before I started, and how I've dealt with those things. So kind of the fears that I had, I guess, were just, I didn't know how many people I could actually find to do this. And especially when they said, okay, it's going to be once a week, like anything that you do once a week is actually, it takes discipline, it takes time, and it takes effort. And, if it's something new in your life, then all of a sudden you've got this thing to worry about every single week in order to keep it going. So when I first started out, I'm just trying to figure out, like, how am I going to find people to be on my show? Like, and not to mention the wrinkle that was there was that it's going to be like a 2-hour show. It's not an hour show. It's actually a 2-hour show. And so that's unique in and of itself on the radio, to have a 2-hour show. It just takes a lot more preparation. If you're going to talk to somebody for 2 hours in the radio world, I realize it's not actually 2 hours. You have breaks and everything, but it's still a lot of prep. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of asks of people to get them to actually show up and talk for essentially about an hour and a half total when everything's said and done. So, I just didn't know how I was going to be able to do that, but I have a really extensive network. And one of the things this show has allowed me to do is just reach out to people across my network, reconnect with them and say, hey, would you be willing to come onto my show and actually tell your story? And I've truly enjoyed being able to talk with people through this platform and this structure where they're telling their story. And I'm inspired by all the people that come on my show. And it's just a wide range of people, people people wouldn't necessarily think that they're an inspirational person, but I'm inspired by a lot of people and just watching what they do. And so it's been neat to watch that. So those are some of the fears, just figuring out who I'm going to interview, if people are going to be willing to do it, and all of those things. When I think about what ways did I underestimate the work or the joy of hosting a weekly show, the work, I mean, it is actually work to try to find people, and then you have to do the scheduling, and then you have to deal with people's schedule issues and all the rest of the things. Some early unique things that came up is just kind of like running headlong into Husker football and all the other wonderful pro sports that are going on, and having a show that's on, a decent time, which was Saturday to start. And then I moved to Sundays. And so just being flexible in that respect, and just recognizing that there's no reason to go to battle with any of those things, right? Just like move to a spot that's a little more convenient, and being a team player when it comes to some of that. When I think about just the flexibility and the adaptability of life, you have to be able to adjust on the fly. You have to be able to say, okay, if I can't do this, then I'm going to do something else, and I'm going to switch it up so that I can accommodate whatever changes need to be made. And I've been extremely flexible with the show. I've had people who have backed out at the last minute, only on a few different occasions. So that's been great. Most people have followed through on showing up on the show. I've had a few people show up late, which is fine, but in radio, you've got to go, right? I mean, it's the top of the hour, that thing's going to drop. So that's been interesting. As far as preparation is concerned, and if you're thinking about doing your own show and different things like that, like what's been really a joy for me and a little bit more exciting is just not necessarily being fully prepared for the show every week. And when I say that, it's not because I can't be prepared. I could do research on these people and really know everything. It's just, I actually like to be surprised by some of the things that happen in the people's lives that they come into my show. I want to know in the moment that there's something that happened that I did not know about, where I can really authentically show that shock that I'm experiencing that at the same time as everybody else, right? So I do some background research on my folks that are coming into the show. I know them, or at least I think I know them, but I'm not like fully filled out with all the information and have all the questions that I'm going to ask and everything else. That's not as authentic and organic to me. So I like to ask questions and let my sense of the story really guide me as I talk through it. And that's been really unique, because there's been some things that have happened about, really that authenticity of the being not prepared to hear some of the things that come up. And, it's really been interesting to like fit this show into my life, because I am a very busy person, and I have to then all of a sudden, I live in Omaha, so I have to drive down to Lincoln every Sunday. That's a commitment, right? The 45 minutes one way, be prepared for my show, be on air for a couple hours, and then head back. And, that's been an adjustment, I'll be honest. And then kind of when I'm out of town and I have to travel for work and different things like that, I have to make sure that my show is ready to go and that everything is queued up. It's just a commitment. And so, but anyways, anything that you care about, you have to be willing to commit to it, and you have to be able to demonstrate the discipline to really show that you're committed to it. And I think having this show on a weekly basis has been a demonstration of that commitment for me, in putting out content that is inspirational and being willing to, challenge myself to find people who are inspirational. So, when I think about just some of the unique things that have popped up over the course of this show and some of the people that I've talked to, it's really odd. Sometimes you'll have great conversations with people in person, but then all of a sudden when they get on the radio, it's like they're just like, they just don't talk as much. And as a host, you have to really try to pull it out of them, because you can't just sit there on the air and have dead air. So that's been one of the more interesting things, is that some of the people that I would have expected to just talk a lot, because we talk a lot in person, when they've gotten on the air and they're realizing that everybody can possibly be listening to them, and then they have to try to like filter the things that are going through their head that they want to say before they say them. That's the thing about radio. It's like real time. And not to mention, these things are recorded, and so they're going to exist for a very long time. And so you have to be careful about what you say and how you say it when you are being recorded. And so I think that's been shocking to some people. As far as listening skills are concerned, sometimes you want to hurry somebody along because they're not getting a thought out fast enough. And that's tough to do, because as a counseling psychologist, I'm not used to hurrying people along. I'm used to allowing people to develop their thoughts and sit in silence. And we're taught to do all those things professionally, but on the air, that just does not work. Right. And so it just kind of, sometimes you're like sitting there, like looking at a person in the studio, and you're just kind of like, all right, come on, let's go, and then all of a sudden your producer says, hey, you've got a minute left. And you're just kind of like, all right, you are deep into something and we got to get to a break. Right. And so there's no breaks in a counseling session. And so that's been a unique thing to also experience. When I think about some lessons and really summing up what I've learned at this early point in the show, it's just be prepared for everything. And when I say that, I mean, just in the sense that you kind of have to be open. You have to be open to the flow of the show. You have to be open to the openness of your guest and how willing they are to talk. You see that pretty early on. Some people are just going to talk more. Some people, they're so shocked by the fact that they're live on the air that they just sit there and think for an extended period of time. And you kind of have to feel that too. You just have to really be ready to go through that process and dance with them in that way, so that you're not necessarily stepping on their toes and they're not necessarily stepping on yours. And so, when I think about this overall, I want you all to be thinking about, what are some projects that you've taken on in your life that have been way more challenging than you expected them to be, that have presented some unique things that you just didn't think about? For a lot of us, that might possibly be starting a business or getting into some kind of a commitment that might be, whether it's a board appointment or coaching our kids' teams and different things like that. You don't recognize how much of a commitment and discipline some of those things take to do it every single week until you truly get involved in it. And so I want you to be thinking about some things that have presented some things that you didn't expect, and comparative to how those things started, how do they continue to develop? And, I also want you to just be thinking about all those projects that you've been working on that maybe your friends don't necessarily know about, and the things that you need to support those friends in your life in that they've started that you forget about. Because one of the things that quickly occurred to me was that the more routine you do something, the more likely it is that people are just going to absolutely forget about it and not care. It's just, you do this every week. Like when I first started my show, everybody was interested, right? It's like, oh my gosh, you're doing a show. This is great. Tell us about it. And then eventually it just becomes a part of normal life because you're doing it every week, right? So those things that we do every week, and we are really focused on and have a schedule within that side of things, those things become routine. And so you kind of have to think about, how do you keep reinventing yourself? Like, how do you bring additional energy and attention and focus to the things that you've got going on? And one of the great parts about this show has been that I've brought different kinds of people onto my show. So I've had athletes on here. I've had people who have been successful in Hollywood. Just last week, I had a principal who was a longtime principal from Lincoln High. There's just different people's perspectives. And I usually try to create some diversity there so that there's different people who will tune into the show, or just hearing from different people. And so, but the point that I want to make there is just, I want you to think about all the things that you are committed to and the things that you focused on in your life that are those weekly things, and how tough it is to do those things every single week, but how rewarding it is also to just build up this, these records of all these wonderful things that you've done, whether that's volunteering on a weekly basis, participating at your church, participating, going to the gym, these different types of things. They're these micro, things that we do every single week. Some of them are bigger, right? Macro things, but that commitment, that discipline, that I'm going to do this every week, it turns into something so much bigger. And so as I reflect on this show kind of early on in this process, I realized that I'm putting a lot of content out there that's really good, positive content that people can listen to for a very long time after my show. And, it's just awesome to know that I'm also providing the people who come on my show a platform to share their stories and their journeys, so that they can share that story and connect with somebody else out there, and somebody can gain something from it. And, what's really neat about this show is that it's not only on the air or the stream, but it's also a YouTube video, and then it also gets turned into a podcast. And so that can be shared more widely and broadly and have more of a broader impact. And so it really allows the audience that gets a chance to hear it wherever they are, the opportunity to tap in and listen to something really positive and inspirational. So, it's just really neat that early on in this show and this opportunity, I've had the opportunity to hear about so many different people's stories and their journeys and everything else. But the main thing it's taught me is just to learn more about myself, being adaptable, recognizing the challenges that come with starting something from scratch and really having to like create a structure and a cadence, and just that commitment and investing in yourself, honestly, when everything's said and done. That's so important, to be able to invest in yourself and, find something that you truly care about, that you want to share and that you want to do, and then following through on it. So I've learned so much more about myself in this process, and also learned a lot about the people who have been on my show. So that's really the first part of this. And, I'm really excited that I get to reflect on this today and share that with all of you because, again, I've learned a lot and just been challenged, and I love to be challenged. And I really enjoy the opportunity to share people's stories. And so we'll have more when we come back after this break. And I think, this is going to be a great opportunity just to hear a little bit more from me, some of the challenges that I've been experiencing, all these different pieces that are, moving right now with the show, and really some excitement about the future about this show. So you're listening to The Law of Lift with Dr. Lawrence Chatters on 93.7 The Ticket. We'll be right back after this.
The savings continue all November long at Elway Power Sports of Lincoln. They're extending their red tag sale with machines priced at invoice plus $300. That's it. No freight, no setup, no extra fees. Plus 10% off snowplow kits, 10% off fly motocross gear, and 50% off all in-stock road tires. Elway Power Sports of Lincoln has you covered all under one roof with a large selection of side-by-sides, ATVs, motorcycles, and personal watercraft at their 27th and I-80 location. They can't wait to get you set up for the holiday season.
This Black Friday, it is time to hit your goals before the new year even starts. At Farrell's Extreme Body Shaping, get 40% off our next 10-week challenge, plus 6 weeks for free to kickstart your fitness journey. Start training December 1st with kickboxing, strength training, and personalized nutrition. So when our official challenge begins January 10th, you're already ahead of the game. Spots are limited. Don't wait for January to make your resolution. Start strong now. Visit fxbeatlincoln.com or stop by one of our 2 locations at South 40th and Yankee Hill or North 70th and Vine. Farrell's Extreme Body Shaping. Stronger starts here.
MWR is dedicated to building attractive, affordable steel buildings that exceed your expectations. From commercial to residential to agriculture storage, steel buildings are cost-effective, attractive, and versatile. Plus, they're a lasting investment and an ideal choice. MWR uses Sentinel Building Systems out of Albion and can service you all over the state and region. If you have interest in a steel building, post-frame building, or fencing, give MWR a call today at 402-980-5273 or go to mwrbuildingandfence.com.
Hi, Charlie Stone here, and it's that time of the year again. Time for the annual Happy Honda Days at Honda of Lincoln. With me on the line, Andy Goodyear, to tell us all about it.
The exciting news is we have more selection and more savings. We have over 400 new 2025 and 2026 Hondas to choose from, with a great opportunity to get year-end savings on every remaining new 2025.
Do you have some Happy Honda Day specials?
Sure do, Charlie. For example, you can lease a new 2025 Accord Sport Hybrid for just $349 a month, and we have financing from just 0% APR. We've also included over 125 pre-owned of all makes and models, and as always, our certified pre-owns are in this sale as well.
Well, maybe it's time you experience the best. The Honda of Lincoln way of doing business, 27th and Yankee Hill Road, or online at hondaoflincoln.com.
This holiday season, give the gift of good taste with a gift card from Valentino's. During double discount days, double your discount from $5 to $10 free with a $50 gift card purchase. Valentino's handcrafted pizza has been a family favorite for generations, and our gift cards make the perfect holiday gift. And right now, during gift card double discount days, when you buy $50 in gift cards, get a $10 gift card free. Happy holidays from Valentino's.
Leaves are falling and temperatures are cooling down, but don't put your golf clubs away. Double Eagle Golf makes golf leagues and events possible year-round. Winter leagues begin on December 1st and are open for registration. Check out their deals on monthly memberships and schedule your Husker Watch parties, birthday or bachelor parties, corporate or team outings, or just a good old Saturday with the boys. That's all at Double Eagle Golf inside the Kinetic Sports Complex on West O Street. Book a tee time today or learn more at doubleeagle.golf.
Acreage owner getting ready for winter? Make it easy with John Deere compact tractors and gators from Acres Equipment. Add snow blowers, front blades, cabs, heaters, and loaders to tackle every chore. Right now, in-stock units are priced to move with competitive financing to fit your budget. Get winter ready today at acres.com. Acres Equipment, your acreage handled. Financing subject to approved credit with John Deere Financial. Not all customers qualify. See dealer for details.
Load up on meat and more this fall at the Mercado by Certified Piedmontese. From now through the end of November, Ferndale fresh turkeys are just $3.99 per pound and in limited stock, perfect for your holiday meals. Plus, you can stop by for lunch on Fired Up Thursday at the Mercado East or Fired Up Friday at the Mercado North. With locations at 84th and Havelock, 30th and Yankee Hill, and now 85th and Old Cheney in Lincoln, or 168th and Maple in Omaha, get to the Mercado today for the best meat in town.
If you are a business owner, I want you to think about the amount of time you've spent worrying about safety and security. Lincoln's own experts at Diode Technologies design custom solutions for security, communication, and so much more. From automated security to secure video conferencing, their team sits down with you to get to know you and what your business needs. Manage your operations and get notified when there is suspicious activity. Save time and cut back on stress. Diode Tech always keeps you in the know. Contact them today at 402-793-5124.
Now back to the Law of Lift with Dr. Lawrence Chatters on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Lincoln, Nebraska, you are back. You're listening to The Law of Lift with Dr. Lawrence Chatters, and today is honestly just a reflection show. And so not only am I reflecting on all the wonderful experiences that I've had on this show since July of 2025, but I'm just talking to you all a little bit about, what's going on in my life right now and some of the unique things that have happened since July as well, just some catch up and everything else. And, at the beginning of each one of these segments, I'm just going to really kind of give you a little bit more insight into what I've had going on. And so back in March of this year, I started a new job working for a nonprofit organization out of Washington, D.C. Called the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. And, the Thurgood Marshall College Fund's been around since 1987. They represent all of the public-facing or the state school HBCUs, which are historically Black colleges and universities. And they provide scholarships for students to go to school. And it's been something that they've been doing since 1987. And they also provide other opportunities for students. And, regardless of if an HBCU is a historically Black college and university, they accept all students, of course. And there's a wide range of students that go to HBCUs. And so our organization provides scholarships for them to attend. We also provide professional development opportunities for those students. We provide professional development opportunities for faculty members at those schools. We also have just recently, and the reason that I actually was hired at the Thurgood Marshall College Fund is to provide mini grants to the universities to do their own capacity building on campus. And so in my role, I'm the Senior Vice President for Capacity Building and Strategic Initiatives, and I get the opportunity to work very closely with our institutions on their own capacity building. And so the project that I'm working on is called Project HBCU Capacity Building, and we just recently have given over $8 million to 8 different institutions to do their own capacity building projects. And that's really my pet project that I'm working on with my staff and the capacity building team at the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. And so I've been there. That's been unique. I mean, just to see the challenges that these universities face in their respective states, to see how since the beginning of the year, there's been a significant amount of shifting that's happened within higher education. And I'm really getting the opportunity to see what that looks like on the forefront of things. And then our organization, the Thurgood Marshall College Fund, gets to provide funding to these universities to do the work that they need to do the way that they see fit. And so we have 8 projects that are going right now. Just about 2 weeks ago, I went out to Atlanta to a convening where I met with those 8 schools and had the chance to hear a little bit more from them on those projects, what they plan to do. And they also got to hear from each other, which was really neat to create some collaborative learning. And that's really what my day-to-day looks like, is being in that role, coordinating the other efforts of the capacity building team within the organization. And honestly, just a lot of learning about the Thurgood Marshall College Fund, because I've only been there for 8 months or so now, but also learning a lot more about HBCUs and historically Black community colleges, HBCCs, and even some of our specific Black serving institutions across the country. I mean, it's definitely a new area that I've learned a lot about over the course of the last 8 months. And so that's really what I've been up to. I serve on a number of boards. I serve on the chair for the Nebraska Children and Families Foundation. Nebraska Children's Family Foundation is a public-private nonprofit that serves the entire state, provides care for families and children, specifically coordinating efforts to make sure that children have food, children have care, and families have care and everything else. And so I've been on that board now, going into my third year in 2026 as the chair. But that organization is just absolutely amazing. I learn more about that organization seriously every time I get the opportunity to connect with the staff there. I've been on that board since 2019. I also serve as the president of Visionary Youth. I talked about Visionary Youth earlier. We have our 3 big events for the year. We have a back to school free haircut and backpack event this last year. I think we did over 900 haircuts there, free haircuts, backpacks for kids to go back to school feeling good, looking good. We do our Thanksgiving event, which is actually happening right now, today on this Sunday, if you're listening on Sunday, and we are preparing for that. We have to get all those bags packed, and we'll be handing out bags of food and turkeys. And then we are also having our toy giveaway again this year. And our toy giveaway is a big deal. We have over 2,500 toys that we give out to a number of families so that they can have something to give their kids for the holidays. And so those 3 big events. And then our other big initiative is the Mentoring in New Dimensions program, which is a mobile barbershop where we provide not only mentorship for kids in that space, but we also provide them with counseling and, free haircut. And so that Mentoring in New Dimensions vehicle has been around for the last 3 years. We've served a number of students, seen some great results from that. That's another big deal of what we do there. And so it's awesome to be the president of that board. And then I'm also the president of the I've Got a Name Foundation, which was founded back in around 2013. They actually do all they can to try to reduce and prevent sex trafficking in the state of Nebraska. And that takes a significant amount of providing, in the street care for the people who are involved, and just providing support for women who are seeking to get out of that space, men and women who are seeking to get out of that space. So I've been doing that now for, about 6 months, but known the founder of that organization, Bob Burton, for an extended period of time, and absolutely enjoy just being there to support him. So number of different board opportunities there. And just, that's the other thing that I do outside of my, my day-to-day job and my remote work that I do. Cause even though my organization is in Washington, DC, I get to work from home, which is amazing. And so, yeah, there's just a little bit of kind of an update on what's been going on with me professionally. Definitely have committed myself to service. And as I listen to my guests and I hear about all the things that they do from a service perspective, it's great to know that there are a lot of people who are out there doing service in the community. I encourage you all, if you can, get involved, serve on a board, volunteer, do something that helps other people. It's always a great way to find joy. It's always very rewarding for me to have the opportunity to do service for other people. So during the second segment, the other thing that I wanted to focus on is just some of the guest stories and the power of conversation. Really, these are some things that I've learned over the course of the time from talking to the guests and had people on my show. Really, I just wanted to make sure that, these conversations were beneficial, and that as people listen to them, that people are lifted up and they hear, okay, that person experienced something very similar to me and it was really challenging, and somehow that person was able to overcome it. And so really, that's kind of the main objective for me of telling these people stories and having them tell their stories or asking them questions, is just, them sharing, hey, I was able to get over this. So some of the patterns that I've noticed is just that, everybody has their origin story, right? And regardless of how much life we live, if you think about the 24 hours in a day and all the time that you've lived to this point, it's amazing how quickly you can look back over the course of your life and somewhat summarize the things that you've experienced, right? We all have those big highlights of things that have happened in our life that really are focal points that we look back on and we say, that was a definitive time. That was a definitive time, right? And so one of the patterns that I've seen is just people really do have a way of like stringing that together. I try to take them on a journey. So I always ask the first question is like, where'd you get your name? Where'd you grow up? Tell us a little bit about what it was like for you to grow up. And people have different speeds at which they kind of talk through their childhood, their early life, and how they put those pieces together. And that's been really interesting to me because, there's never been a time that I think folks have just heard from somewhere else, this is how you're supposed to summarize your life, right? Like we never hear that, but it seems as though there's a pattern to how people do summarize their life. And traditionally, I'll hear a little bit about their early life. I'll hear a little bit about their parents, about where they grew up. I like to get a little more insight into what it was like for them to be a kid, wherever they are, right? And so I've gotten more detail from some people than others. Some people just kind of gloss over that pretty quickly and they want to jump into something else. But I really like my listeners to hear what it was like for a person growing up, right? So, I interviewed a number of people, and one of the people early on that I interviewed is a former Husker and NFL player. His name's Jamie Williams. And what I can remember about his story specifically is he talked to me about growing up in Davenport, Iowa. And he talked to me about a teacher that just took him outside and stood there outside of the back of the school and told him to look over the horizon. And over the horizon, there was all these factories and stuff, it's like this industrial town. And she said, look over the horizon. And she said, that's where you're going to go, and she pointed at it. And it was just really poignant to see or hear about how he was inspired by a teacher and how she physically took him outside and told him to look over the horizon and think about going there and how he was going to be successful because of how bright he was and how much he read. He read so many books when he was in school. And so, in his mind, he was able to go over the horizon because in books, you can go so much farther because you can read other people's stories and journeys. But when she took him outside and physically showed him the horizon and said, that's where you're going to go, it's just really that stuck with me. And he really got into detail talking about his story. There's been some other people who have talked about their stories growing up and what it was like for them. Another story that really stuck out to me was, a lady that I interviewed. She was very successful in her career, went to Hollywood, worked on shows like American Idol, Survivor, stuff like that. And she talked about growing up here in Lincoln and just her block, and how she would play on her block. And there were other kids that she'd play with on her block, and that she was really, the youngest. And so she'd have to, she loved to put on shows at the house for her parents and, do little things like that. And it just was so neat to hear about her journey and how much she enjoyed her childhood and how it was just her and her parents because she was the youngest. And so it's just so neat to hear about people's stories because to me, and again, this is the piece of just kind of incorporating my counseling psychology into it, that context provides some foreshadowing to what the rest of their life will be like. And it really provides me with a better understanding also of how they see the world, right? So I start to think about how those pieces connect. What did they have access to? What different things they saw, how they got the opportunities that they got early on in life and had the chances to, really explore. And that gives me a little bit more insight into what their life would be like. And traditionally, when I hear about their youth, I can kind of start to see some of those pieces fit together. And of course, in the work that we do as psychologists, that context is incredibly important. And so, that's really neat for me to hear about with my guests. The other thing that's been challenging is just some of the adversity that my guests have talked about, as they talk about overcoming some of the challenges in their lives. And, I've heard some pretty rough things, and it's just been, whether it be abusive situations in their life where they had abuse going on in the household or where they've had, a pretty significant traumatic thing that's happened to them. I've had a number of guests that have experienced significant car accidents and those things and how that really changed their lives. And it's just the blink of an eye. One of the things you quickly realize is that they experience that terrible thing, that tragic thing, and it's a part of the past. But when they're talking about it on the air, they're really reliving it. They're reliving that challenge, that trauma on the air. And so I have to give them space during those experiences so that they can, go through that again. And then what I also recognize is that there's traditionally a point at which after they experience that tragic thing, that traumatic thing, they turn a corner. And after they turn that corner and they start consistently, as I was talking about earlier in the show, doing something, whether it be rehabilitation or finding their way back from whatever significant challenge they experienced, once they find that new discipline and that new cadence of moving towards success, that's really that turning point, right? And traditionally they can look back and say, okay, I made it through this. I'm moving forward now. And a lot of times, one of the things that's interesting about hearing is that they say, and I never looked back, right? I never looked back. I kept moving forward from that point. And so I want you all to be thinking about, what are some of those turning points in your life that you've experienced challenges, that you've had something going on that's been really tough, that somehow you find that turning point and you just walk forward. Because what I want to tell you is that there's no definition of when that turning point has to happen. It can happen at any point in time. If you're struggling with something right now, you can actually tomorrow wake up and say, I'm going to start working. I'm going to start pushing myself. I'm going to challenge myself to not do this thing anymore, whether it's some type of an addiction or some other challenge that you have in your life. You can start tomorrow. You can start today. That's the great thing, is that as I've heard these stories of adversity, people had to have that point where they said, I'm going to rebuild. I'm going to move in the direction I need to move in. Some stories that specifically come to mind for me there is, talking to my wife, and she experienced a significant accident when she was 16 years old. And, she talked about rehab, and she talked about going back to school. And she gave this example of just being in a meeting where, they were at the school and they were talking about what was going to happen with her. And she's just sitting there, feeling so broken and challenged, and, couldn't even really walk or talk that easily because of all the challenges she'd experienced as a result of that accident. And they said, hey, how about we just hold you back a year in school, and that way things will be easier? And she was just like, nope. She said she conjured up all the power she had, and she said, that's not going to happen. I'm going to graduate on time with my class. And so she made a decision in that meeting that she was going to fight through it, and she did it. And it was hard, right? But she had to wake up every day believing that she was able to do that. And, there's just so many other stories of overcoming adversity that I've heard that have really demonstrated that turning point and that commitment to moving in the right direction over the challenges and everything else. And so, I think that my guests have truly challenged me as I've heard their stories. And, they've really changed my understanding of, leadership, resilience, and service. And I've just heard about so many different things that my guests have done over the course of their life. And what I recognize is that everyone demonstrates service in some way. Everyone demonstrates leadership in some way. I think sometimes we get caught up in this idea of exactly what leadership looks like, who a leader is, what that means they do. But people have demonstrated leadership in a wide range of ways in their own stories. They've done a lot of service. I remember talking to one gentleman who is the current CFO. Actually, I think he does, technology. He's like the chief technology officer for Fiserv. And as a young kid, he joined the Marine Corps, and he talked about the weapon that he learned to fire and the service that he did in the Marine Corps and all the things he did. And, it was just so jarring to hear about his experience growing up where he did, and then going into the Marines and getting shipped all over, and then kind of coming back and just being dumped back in his home community, And when I think about military people who have, served their country, and all the men and women who have put on the uniform, it's just so challenging to, really think about how tough it must be to just put on that uniform, go to basic training, get your mindset changed, just really be prepared to be, as he said back then in that show, he said he was trained to be a killing machine, right? And so I don't necessarily think of it that way, but when I think about all the people who have served and everything that they've been trained to do, and it's just amazing to see how service is manifested. And then the resilience of people has just been absolutely amazing as I've learned more about people's stories and heard from them about the things that they've gone through and how they bounce back and continue to get up and show up and be there for not only themselves, but other people. And an example of that, I had a gentleman who was actually Bud Crawford's athletic trainer. And this is a guy I've known for many years. And he talked about a car accident that he was in where basically he broke his back and just had some very substantial injuries. And, when he walked up that day to the show, I just hadn't seen him for a while. And from a distance, it looked like, he was doing great, and he is doing great. I mean, he's overcome that, but he just was like, man, I just didn't sleep very well last night. And when I don't sleep well, my whole body's just not working well. And he was noticeably stiff. And of course it was the result of this accident, but he's still extremely strong and a person who trained a champion boxer, but yet still he decided that he was still going to show up to my show. And so just the resilience of people, their commitment, their confidence, watching them as they go through these different types of things and show up. I mean, it's been pretty amazing to watch that. I'd say some of the conversations that have surprised me the most, and, really what it revealed about some of my assumptions about people, is just really like listening to people's stories of the challenges that they've experienced. That's what's challenged me the most, is hearing these things that people have gone through, how they overcome those things, and then sitting with them on the air while hearing these tough stories and these tough things. Sometimes it can make you a bit emotional. One of my best friends talked to me about growing up. He experienced some very significant circumstances when coming into this world. His mother was actually shot multiple times by his biological father and left for dead, and her sisters were shot too. And he talked to me about the fact that his mom found it in her heart to forgive this man who shot her and would take him to the prison to see his dad. And his dad would tell his mom that, when I get out, I'm going to come and get him and I'm going to take him back to Ghana. And he talked to me about how that shaped his perspective and why, he's such an on-edge person, and why he was such an on-edge person as a young person, because his mom told him, hey, you always need to know your address. You always need to know where you're going, because I don't want your dad to come and take you back to Africa. Right. And so that really struck me, and just his story in general and all the things he had to overcome before he even came into this world. And the fact that he now works so hard to serve other people, his resilience and his courage to give back, that really struck me. Like, I didn't really think about that, about his journey. And it really helped me better understand a lot of things about his perspective. Hearing these stories has helped me really reframe my own story and just think about some of the things that I've overcome, and really, I guess, just humble myself, right? Like, we've all definitely experienced adversity, but you realize some people have experienced more adversity than others. And, everyone has lift inside of them. That's one of the things that I've recognized, is that we all have the capability to get outside of our circumstances and find our way out. It takes different paths and it takes different methods to do that, but we all have the ability to lift off. And, there's just normal people walking around that are overcoming significant odds that you don't even really think about. And I think that when you get the opportunity to hear people's stories, this is what it's done for me. Not only does it humble you and help you realize just how great it is that we do have the capability to hear people's stories and be motivated by it, but it also just demonstrates to us that nobody really just has it easy, right? Like, I mean, sometimes you might look at somebody and say, oh gosh, they must have it easy. They're so athletic, or they're so great looking, or they've got so much money, right? It doesn't matter. Like, everybody has their own struggles. And that's what I've recognized, is that those struggles are things that truly define how we overcome the issues in our life. And to see these moments in people's lives where they've truly been able to overcome adversity and navigate through some of the things that they're experiencing. I mean, that's just been amazing. It's been amazing to hear them talk about it. And it's also been amazing to truly be able to see into what makes a person who they are. It's always something that I've enjoyed as a psychologist, counseling psychologist, that you get to really see all the pieces and how they fit together. And then it helps you better understand contextually why a person sees the world the way that they do. But even beyond that, and what we see and experience in those moments, people are way more complicated than that, right? And so you might think that somebody sees something some way because you've heard about something that happened to them, and you might think that their perspective was this, but it's also, could be something different. And so it's just truly increased my belief in the absolute amazing value of the unique human experience and all the things that people have gone through, what they've experienced, and how important it is that we give people space to be who they are and recognize that there's not one size that fits all in anything. We as human beings are just so absolutely unique. Our perspectives are unique, the things we've experienced, how we've overcome those things. Sometimes it's not what you would expect, right? You might think, oh, well, that was a really great opportunity. I'm sure you took that opportunity. And they're like, no, I didn't take that opportunity. I actually went in a different direction. And so, there's just all these different things that we experience in our life that sometimes you might expect one thing, but something else happens that I've decided that, my belief in this idea that, we do have this unique experience as human beings is true. And it is really reason that we should open ourselves up to, being considerate of all these different people's perspectives and learn from the simplest thing. I've learned so much. I mean, just hearing people's stories and everything, it's been amazing to go through that process and learn more. And so, this has really influenced the way that I interact with people off the air, whether it be colleagues, family, and community, because I recognize just how important all these stories are. And, there's just something so incredibly special about that. And there's amazing things that happen when you get the opportunity to listen to a person's story and hear from them, just how incredible the things are that they know, what they've seen, how they've really come to terms with those things that they've seen and incorporated those things into their life. And then when they share that, it's even more beautiful. So that's where things are at this point. I mean, I just learned so much. It's really had an influence on me. And I look forward to talking with you more about that when we return. You're listening to The Law of Lift with Dr. Lawrence Chatters on 93.7 The Ticket. We'll be right back after this.
Hey guys, it's Carly from Boyd Farm Outfitters. Farmers, you need to know about Green Eye Spot Spray. With Green Eye, we replace your existing spray boom with a brand new aluminum boom equipped with camera technology that identifies and sprays only weeds and not your crop. The boom comes with 2 spray lines so you can still broadcast residual herbicide while you're spot spraying weeds that are up. Green Eye users in Nebraska are saving a ton of money on herbicides, but that's just the beginning. Learn more at BoydFarmOutfitters.com. That's BOECK FarmOutfitters.com.
If you want to make new floor shopping easier, come to O Street Carpet. Hi, I'm Steve Carper. Our flooring professionals can help you choose the best flooring for you, your family, and your budget. We eliminate the confusion. Even better, you'll be enjoying your new flooring much sooner. No 6 or 8 week waits. We'll install right away and save you money on installation. Floor shopping made easy every day at O Street Carpet. O Street Carpet. 1732 O Street. Family owned and operated. Always the best value.
This is former Husker and NFL linebacker Jay Foreman. For years, I've suffered from degenerative problems in both of my ankles, but thanks to a thorough and thought-out plan provided by Advanced Medical Imaging, I was able to get my life back with the least amount of pain as possible. While working through multiple options, the team of physicians at Advanced Medical Imaging were there to answer any questions I had. If you're experiencing any pain at all and want to get your life back, go to amimaging.com or give them a call at 402-484-6677. Advanced Medical Imaging, located at 7601 Pioneers Boulevard.
At Parkview Animal Hospital in Lincoln, it's not just their professional care that sets them apart, but their warm staff and state-of-the-art facilities. Whether it's for a routine checkup or a comprehensive medical procedure, at Parkview, your pet isn't just another number, but a valued member of their caring family. Visit them at pahlincoln.com today and in person just south of 14th and Pine Lake Road. Parkview Animal Hospital, your pet, their passion, for happier, healthier, furry friends.
I'm Karen Carr. I've been a realtor for 31 years. When I made a company change 12 years ago, I chose Lincoln First Realty, now NP Dodge. It's the oldest independently owned realty company in the country. Since becoming NP Dodge, we've continued our tradition of community involvement. Our management and staff are always available to offer support in marketing, technology, social media, and educational opportunities.
Expand your career with NP Dodge. Call Eric at 402-434-2222.
It's the holiday season. Time for work parties, friend get-togethers, and family gatherings, which means lots of eating. Maybe you think you've perfected your holiday meals, and maybe you have no idea where to even start. Let's fix that right now. No holiday party is complete without Führer's cheese spread. It goes well with any type of cracker, pretzels, apples, chili, vegetable chips, and of course it's perfect to pair with wine or beer. Holiday meals aren't complete until Führer's cheese spread is on the table. Find your own container at your nearest local grocery store today.
Things that impair you come in many different shapes and sizes. Some are the shape of beer and liquor bottles. Others look like cigarettes but aren't cigarettes at all. These are the things we know impair us, the things our parents warned us about. What we're not always aware of is our new prescription, or the over-the-counter medicine we picked up just for allergies or a bad cold. See, it doesn't just matter how much of a substance you take. If you are impaired, driving is deceptively dangerous. Don't drive impaired. Paid for by the NDOT Highway Safety Office.
Midwest Bank is hosting our annual Thanksgiving food drive, partnering with local Lincoln schools to provide Thanksgiving dinners to families in need. We hope to provide meals for more than 120 families in our community this year. You can help by dropping off a donation at either Midwest Bank location, 7001 Pioneers Boulevard or 2655 Jamie Lane. Any donation is greatly appreciated. Your community, your bank, Midwest Bank, member FDIC.
Fall is officially here, and Brown's Shoe Fit has just the right style and comfort your feet deserve. Stop in to see a wide selection of all your favorite brands, including Brooks, Hoka, Echo, Keen, and many more. At Brown's Shoe Fit, they take the time to measure your feet to ensure proper fit. They also have the largest selection of Uggs and Hokas in Lincoln. Brown's Shoe Fit at 66th and Q.
This is where it happens. Long hikes with friends, kayaking adventures with family, more horseback riding, zipline gliding, rock face climbing, hammock camping fun than you could ever imagine. And it's all outdoors, amongst the trees and across the prairie, here beneath Nebraska skies. Plan an outing today at yournebraskaadventure.com. Sponsored by Nebraska Game and Parks, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
You're listening to The Law of Lift with Dr. Lawrence Chatters. Real stories, powerful insights, and weekly inspiration to help you rise above life's challenges. Let's lift off with Dr. Lawrence Chatters on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
You're back on The Law of Lift. This is Dr. Lawrence Chatters. I'm excited to be having the opportunity today to really reflect on my show that started back in July. And, you know, it's just really been incredibly humbling to talk to all the people on my show. And as I think about what exactly this has done for me and how this has influenced my way of thinking and overall how this has influenced my perspective, it's been incredibly beneficial to actually be on the show on a weekly basis with people who are inspirational and actually hear from them how they got to where they are. And I just love hearing people's stories. I love to talk with people about the things that they find important in their life. And I also enjoy hearing about how the pieces connect. I'm just a contextual person, and I love to hear about why people see the world the way that they do. And so, you know, for my own journey and my own personal self-awareness, you know, this has just been, for me, an opportunity to be more honest with myself about who I am as a person and what shaped me. And as I think back to my early life, and I think back to, you know, some of the things that I had to overcome, you know, having a disability, just being different, and also at the same time having to move around a lot in my life, it has, you know, it's really been unique to see that regardless of whether another person has a disability or other challenges that they've experienced, that everybody has those challenges early on in life. You know, we kind of talk about, okay, whether it was being the new kid when you moved to a small town or your family had to, you know, uproot and go somewhere else, or something happened to a parent or something happened to a significant other early on in life and you have to like change. Those are things that really do define people to an extent, but they're also things that they get over and they can navigate through. And so as I think about my own personal journey and those challenges early on in my life, I realized that everybody has those challenges. It's just how you respond to them. And as we look back in that retrospective, it's oftentimes just really trying to figure out, well, gosh, how did I overcome that? What did I do in order to not make that the focus? How did I make that background noise instead of the main thing that was happening in my life? And, honestly, for me, I had to shift into a mode of thinking that was more focused on the things that I could do rather than the things that I couldn't do. And so when I think of it that way, it's just, I may not be able to see that well, but at the same time, I have this great mind and I can think and I can read and I can talk to people, I can interact with people, I can build relationships. That was really what I focused on, instead of the fact that I couldn't do some other things, really, like be really good at sports or, other hand-eye coordination things, right? I was able to focus on the things that I could do. And as I look at other people's journeys and experiences, there's not a lot of people out there that just feel like, oh, I just had it so easy, right? Like I just was able to do all these things and, I was just great at everything. Everyone has their challenges. Everyone has their setbacks and the things that unfortunately make them feel different from others. And so that's been a fairly universal thing across the board. I feel like I've gotten stronger because as I think about some of the things that I had to overcome, and I've actually heard other people talk about the things that they've overcome, I think I've just realized that that's a part of the human experience, right? It's that we're going to have some challenges. We're going to struggle through some things, but we can find our way through it. Haven't found anyone on my show yet that just said, and that was the point at which I just gave up and I decided I'm not going to be able to do this, right? We all have this self-determination, I think, that continues to move us through these challenging experiences and the things that, are going on. And what's amazing about that is that, to me, we all have a part of that in us. And so, it's also opened me up to being more vulnerable. And, I've always been a person who I don't mind being vulnerable around people because I think that vulnerability actually offers a special glimpse into my thinking and my struggles. And I think when people get a chance to see through what they see as just consistent success, or you've never had to deal with anything negative and you're vulnerable and you talk about those things, I believe that really humanizes us. And so, when I go out and I do my public speaking, being vulnerable's always been a method that I've used in order to connect with people, because I think when people see that you've gone through some things and that you've stumbled and that you've failed and that you've experienced adversity, it's definitely something that helps them better align with you. So, where I've seen my own ego get in the way and, how I've learned from some of those moments is just really kind of pushing people along, in their stories. Sometimes I feel like, okay, I want to get past this point. I want to talk about something else, or I want to focus in on something else. And people have oftentimes like pushed back and been like, no, I want to go back and I want to talk about that. Right. Even though I may not necessarily think that's an important thing to talk about, because I want to get to something else that may be another point in their life that I thought was a defining moment. But one of the things that's been humbling is just them saying, no, that wasn't a defining moment, or, this is something else that I wanted to really develop and talk more about because this was something that was important to me. And, oftentimes we think we know a person's life. We think we understand the challenges that they've had to experience or the things that they've had to overcome. And when you get to hear from them and you actually allow them in that space to guide the conversation and really take things the direction that they want to take them in, sometimes it can be humbling to know that, gosh, I really had that all wrong. This isn't necessarily what this person really thinks is the best part of their life or the most challenging thing that's happened to them. It might be something else. And so that's been really incredible for me to step back. And again, in this space, I'm not a professional. I'm not doing counseling. I'm just talking to somebody and I'm hearing their story. And so that's been incredibly powerful for me to step back from that perspective, change things from, feeling like I'm in that professional space and allowing them to guide the journey. And, this show has also really helped me to integrate all these different pieces of my life that I've always found to be separate, right? So being a DJ, being a leader, being a person who's a counseling psychologist, being a friend, being a servant in the community, like all of those different things, being a dad, being a husband, this has helped me to really combine all of those things in a really positive way. And it's really given me that chance to like think about all these different perspectives together. And, they shouldn't be separate because it's your identity. It's who you are. It's really that specific way that you incorporate all those things that is how you show up. But, it really has helped me from that integration perspective. So here we are at the bottom of hour one, coming up in hour two. I just want to make sure that I take you behind the scenes of the show, talk to you a little bit more about what I've learned about community impact and where the Law of Lift is headed next. In the future, there's a really bright future for the show. We've heard from a lot of people, but there's still a lot of people to come. So anyways, you're listening to the Law of Lift with Dr. Lawrence Chatters, and we will be right back after this.
Hey guys, it's Carly from Boyd Farm Outfitters. Farmers, you need to know about Green Eye Spot Spray. With Green Eye, we replace your existing spray boom with a brand new aluminum boom equipped with camera technology that identifies and sprays only weeds and not your crop. The boom comes with 2 spray lines so you can still broadcast residual herbicide while you're spot spraying weeds that are up. Green Eye users in Nebraska are saving a ton of money on herbicides, but that's just the beginning. Learn more at BoydFarmOutfitters.com. That's BOECK FarmOutfitters.com.
If you want to make new floor shopping easier, come to O Street Carpet. Hi, I'm Steve Carper. Our flooring professionals can help you choose the best flooring for you, your family, and your budget. We eliminate the confusion. Even better, you'll be enjoying your new flooring much sooner. No 6 or 8 week waits. We'll install right away and save you money on installation. Floor shopping made easy every day at O Street Carpet. O Street Carpet. 1732 O Street. Family owned and operated. Always the best value.
This is former Husker and NFL linebacker Jay Foreman. For years, I've suffered from degenerative problems in both of my ankles, but thanks to a thorough and thought-out plan provided by Advanced Medical Imaging, I was able to get my life back with the least amount of pain as possible. While working through multiple options, the team of physicians at Advanced Medical Imaging were there to answer any questions I had. If you're experiencing any pain at all and want to get your life back, go to amimaging.com or give them a call at 402-484-6677. Advanced Medical Imaging, located at 7601 Pioneers Boulevard.
At Parkview Animal Hospital in Lincoln, it's not just their professional care that sets them apart, but their warm staff and state-of-the-art facilities. Whether it's for a routine checkup or a comprehensive medical procedure, at Parkview, your pet isn't just another number, but a valued member of their caring family. Visit them at pahlincoln.com today and in person just south of 14th and Pine Lake Road. Parkview Animal Hospital, your pet, their passion, for happier, healthier, furry friends.
I'm Karen Carr. I've been a realtor for 31 years. When I made a company change 12 years ago, I chose Lincoln First Realty, now NP Dodge. It's the oldest independently owned realty company in the country. Since becoming NP Dodge, we've continued our tradition of community involvement. Our management and staff are always available to offer support in marketing, technology, social media, and educational opportunities.
Expand your career with NP Dodge. Call Eric at 402-434-2222.
It's the holiday season. Time for work parties, friend get-togethers, and family gatherings, which means lots of eating. Maybe you think you've perfected your holiday meals, and maybe you have no idea where to even start. Let's fix that right now. No holiday party is complete without Führer's cheese spread. It goes well with any type of cracker, pretzels, apples, chili, vegetable, chips, and of course it's perfect to pair with wine or beer. Holiday meals aren't complete until Führer's cheese spread is on the table. Find your own container at your nearest local grocery store today.
Things that impair you come in many different shapes and sizes. Some are the shape of beer and liquor bottles. Others look like cigarettes but aren't cigarettes at all. These are the things we know impair us, the things our parents warned us about. What we're not always aware of is our new prescription, or the over-the-counter medicine we picked up just for allergies or a bad cold. See, it doesn't just matter how much of a substance you take. If you are impaired, driving is deceptively dangerous. Don't drive impaired. Paid for by the NDOT Highway Safety Office.
Midwest Bank is hosting our annual Thanksgiving food drive, partnering with local Lincoln schools to provide Thanksgiving dinners to families in need. We hope to provide meals for more than 120 families in our community this year. You can help by dropping off a donation at either Midwest Bank location, 7001 Pioneers Boulevard or 2655 Jamie Lane. Any donation is greatly appreciated. Your community, your bank, Midwest Bank, member FDIC.
Fall is officially here, and Brown's Shoe Fit has just the right style and comfort your feet deserve. Stop in to see a wide selection of all your favorite brands, including Brooks, Hoka, Echo, Keen, and many more. At Brown's Shoe Fit, they take the time to measure your feet to ensure proper fit. They also have the largest selection of Uggs and Hokas in Lincoln. Brown's Shoe Fit at 66th and Q.
This is where it happens. Long hikes with friends, kayaking adventures with family, more horseback riding, zip-line gliding, rock face climbing, hammock camping fun than you could ever imagine. And it's all outdoors, amongst the trees and across the prairie, here beneath Nebraska skies. Plan an outing today at yournebraskaadventure.com. Sponsored by Nebraska Game and Parks, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Now back to the Law of Lift with Dr. Lawrence Chatters on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Lincoln, Nebraska, you are back on the Law of Lift with Dr. Lawrence Chatters. I am just really excited to have the opportunity today to reflect on how things have been going with my show and about my guests. And, you know, there's just really been a lot of learning for me over the course of this show. And it's been incredibly humbling to hear the journeys from people, hear about their listeners, hear about their leadership, hear about all the things that have impacted their life. And you know, it's just great to have the opportunity to talk about that. So, you know, in hour one, I got a chance to talk a little bit about what it's like to be on a weekly show. I mean, it takes a lot of preparation. It takes a lot of commitment to finding people to be on the show. It really does take a lot of, you know, listening and just it takes a lot of effort, just to be honest. And anything that you're going to do on a weekly basis, anything you're going to commit yourself to on a weekly basis is going to take discipline. It's going to take focus, and it's been no different in this situation for me. You know, it was an idea that, you know, just came up with and then kind of decided to chase after this. And I've learned so much about it. You know, there's just so many different things that have come up during this show, questions that I've been able to ask my guests about their life, about things that they've gone through. And those things have been really enriching. And you know, it's been unique to have the opportunity to hear from so many different types of people in a similar format. And as far as like feedback that I've received so far, I mean, there's actually people that listen to my show on a weekly basis who have talked to me about, you know, certain stories that they've heard and why those stories really stick with them. People have really opened up on this show, and they have been willing to share some of the significant challenges that they've overcome, whether it be addiction or other issues that are happening in their life, mental health challenges that they've gone through, tragedies that they've experienced over the course of their lives. It's just been really unique to hear those things from people. And I've had listeners who have actually said, you know, hey, I listened to this particular show. This was a really powerful story. And that helped me because I realized that somebody else out there has experienced something similar to something that I've experienced. And they talked about how they were able to overcome that challenge. And to me, just hearing that from one listener is honestly enough. I mean, I set out to make sure that people's stories are heard, that I can offer some positive content in a world where oftentimes negative content is out there and there's a lot of negative things that people engage in. I just really wanted to do something positive. And to hear that people actually listen to the show, first and foremost, is great, because as I was talking about in the first hour, you know, sometimes you start these things and they just kind of become background noise because you do it so often. People just don't necessarily feel they need to tap in because clearly somebody's listening, right? It's called diffusion of responsibility, by the way. But anyways, it's just interesting when you have a show that's happening on a weekly basis, when you hear people who say, I listen to your show every week, you know, I really enjoy it, or what, you know, it's surprising, right? Because sometimes when we take on these unique challenges and try to like create something, you don't think that someone's going to get something from it, but somebody does. So, you know, people have told me that it's helped them, it's encouraged them to hear from other people. It's challenged them when they hear that somebody has overcome something that they're struggling with. And honestly, when we look at other people's lives, oftentimes we look at their lives with a certain sense of judgment, and we try to think about, well, gosh, if I was in that situation, what would I do? How would I actually get through that? Or could I actually get through that? And I think what you hear on the show is you just hear people who it appears that they're up against these extremely long odds, and you try to figure out, like, how could somebody get out of something like that? And then you hear them explain, this is how I got out of it, right? And so then you're looking at your own life and you're just thinking, well, okay, as I add up all these different circumstances that I'm currently experiencing and all the different things that I have or I don't have, how exactly would I get through something like that, right? And am I capable of getting through something like that with the limitations that I have versus the person who's talking about getting through something like that? So there's a lot of comparison. And I think that comparison in life is important. When we see somebody who's dealing with a significant challenge and they're able to overcome it, and then we can reflect on our situation and we can learn from it. It's called vicarious learning. When you hear about something that somebody else has done and you kind of take that and you apply it to your life, you can figure out how you're able to navigate some of those challenges. There's also just that sense of the empathy that we experience when we hear somebody else has gone through something that we've gone through, and we connect with them through that. And that's something that's really important to me. I think it's something we have to do more often as human beings. I think as we find ourselves going in different directions and feeling more separated from people, it's because we're not empathizing with the people around us. It's because we're not seeing them as we are in our own experiences going through things. We think that somebody else's experiences are just so different. And when those experiences align with all of the things that we're having in our life, and then we realize that somebody has been able to overcome some adversity or they've been challenged by something, then we can accept that we are very similar to them. And that goes over and above all these different lines of difference that we might experience, whether it's your political party or your ethnicity or your culture. When you hear people's journeys and you recognize that they've been able to overcome certain things and you can align with that, then all of a sudden you see that person as way more human, right? As you realize those things. So, when I think about the things that my audience members have learned and all the different unique stories that have been told on this show, what I recognize again, and I talked about this, is just the uniqueness of the human experience and how we all go through things, we all experience things, but we experience them differently. Whether you grew up in, this country, or you grew up in a different country, or you've gone and experienced different types of things. And I've had people on my show who have grown up across the country. I've experienced talking to people about growing up in, different countries. I had one guy who grew up in Trinidad, and that's where my mom is from. And that was awesome to hear his story about what it was like to grow up there, because I always wondered, what it must have been like for my mom to grow up. And she's told stories about it. And he corroborated some of those stories about being a kid in the Caribbean and just having, not a care in the world, and just how different it was from then he moved to Jersey City, New Jersey. And so, just hearing some of those stories, it's just been very enlightening for me to hear about people's experiences. And I think it's also enlightening for people who listen to the show. The show's really opened some unexpected doors for me too. And that's just been like increased relationships with people, increased interest in talking to people about their experiences beyond the show, hearing some things that I never really even knew about people that I thought I knew. And that's been super unique. I mean, one of my best friends, and I talked a little bit about this last hour, but just kind of talking about his early childhood and how, I kind of asked him, like, how did that shape who you are to this day and how you see the world? And for the first time, we started connecting some dots around his insecurities and why he sees the world the way he does. And we were able to really talk through some of those things on the air. And it was just shocking to me that we had never really talked about that. And so, it just really, it opens up some new perspectives. And what's been really awesome is just talking to people, them sharing their stories, and then feeling closer to them after sharing those stories. And, I would definitely say that aligns with, the type of connection that you experience with somebody when you're working with them through a therapeutic relationship, that as you hear somebody and you get to experience and give them space to talk about themselves in that story, you definitely feel closer to them because they're actually sharing some challenging things that they've gone through. They're sharing some insights that they've had over the course of their life, some things, successes that they've had, which has been amazing to experience as well. And, that allows that space for closeness. And I think it allows the space for empathy. And I've authentically sat with them and heard these things and just gained a significant amount of respect for them for talking about those things openly and actually experiencing those things with them. And, regardless of who I've talked to, whether it be former pro athletes, people who've been extremely successful in their own right, it's just interesting to see behind the scenes how challenging those times, even the successes, were for them, and the different types of things that they were experiencing as they were going through those things. And, there's just something really special, I think, about hearing from somebody who you've always thought had it together, that they didn't have it together, right? That they were struggling during a time that you might have thought that they were really soaring, or that, when somebody was really struggling, that's when they were fighting their way back towards success. And that's where they found their grit and the time and effort that goes behind who they are as a person and how successful they've been able to be. It's just neat to hear about that. And so to hear that from people that I respect in my life and people who I know a lot of other people respect has been unique. And, the other thing that I've learned about, honestly, in this process is just the responsibility of influence. And, I felt an increase in that responsibility because of having the opportunity to have a show that is, 2 hours and is weekly. Is just, when you have the chance to impact people through your voice and through being able to present other people's stories, and actually having the chance to talk about the things that are impacting people, that is a responsibility. I mean, you have to take it seriously, and you have to be open and willing to allow people to come into the space and talk about the different things that they are experiencing. And that there are people out there that are connecting to that. And so when I think about the importance and the responsibility of influence, it really makes me think about the people who don't necessarily take that seriously, who don't understand that putting content out there is an incredible responsibility, that we are trying to hopefully help each other and support each other. And that's one of the things that really gives me great joy, is that I know that the work that I'm putting into this show and the people who are coming onto the show, it's all about inspiration, right? I can look back on this 10, 15 years from now and know that I felt it was important to invest in this idea of putting positive stories out there for people that they would hear and that they would see as something that would lift them up. And, you never know when you're experiencing something negative, and you can listen to something positive and learn from it. And so the platform of radio and this idea of having a voice and being able to share other people's voice and amplify their voice, it's really important to see just how incredibly influential that can be. And so that's really been helpful for me, is recognizing that responsibility, bringing people onto the show that, again, I've gotten some recommendations from people of, hey, this person would be a great guest. Of course, a lot of the people I've picked myself because they're just people who I find to be inspirational. They're people who motivate me. I consider myself a highly motivated person. And so I've considered people that motivate me to be really motivated, because I get up every morning and I want to take on every single day like I should, and, do a lot and get a lot done and be a person who's just pushing myself to be a servant. And so the people who inspire me, I think they're the same. And there have been people who have been my mentors over the course of my life, my friends. One of my favorite shows was bringing my wife on and having the opportunity to talk to her about her life, because, again, you think you really know someone, right? Especially your significant other. And, just to hear from them and all the respect you have for them and all the challenges you've seen them overcome, to give them space and a platform to have a voice and really tell people their story is just an amazing thing. And so that's been great. When I think about the topics that are worthy of kind of being on this show, there's not really a significant process in that for me. It's just a matter of giving people who have had a very variety of experiences the opportunity to tell their story, and to talk to people who I think are going to be interesting. And I'm interested in a lot of things. I'm a very curious person. And so to talk to people who have been successful in a wide range of areas, who have grown up in a wide range of areas and learned a lot of different things, it's neat to ask them what that process was like. I'm so interested in this thing called life and the fact that we get to live this life and we get to experience people in this life, that I just truly enjoy the opportunity to hear from people and how they live their lives and what they see as those significant moments over the course of their life. And, I've really had to think, okay, who do I want to give a platform to, right? Because there are people who I believe, are engaged in some not so positive things in the world, or they just have perspectives that are incredibly different from mine, in that maybe they do engage in some stuff that's not necessarily positive, or their perspective could be, restrictive or incredibly discriminatory, or whatever the case might be. And I fortunately don't necessarily have to give those people a voice on my show. And so that's one of the things that has been good for me. However, I have pushed myself to try to find people who have different perspectives from mine. And certainly there have been people on my show who have different perspectives than mine, but traditionally we're talking about the things that matter to them. Right. And so whether or not we see eye to eye or not. And I remember I was interviewing a friend of mine, and he specifically said at the beginning, we don't see eye to eye on everything. We have different perspectives. And I thought to myself, absolutely, we have different perspectives on a number of things. However, we do see eye to eye on a lot of things too. And I actually serve on his board, and really consider him a mentor of mine, a great father, a great husband, a person that I look up to. And that's one of the other great things that I've been able to do on my show too, is just really celebrate people early on in my show and tell them in real time how much I respect them and how much I care for them, and how much I see them as a leader or a person who is inspirational. I get to do that on my show. There's nothing like that, because oftentimes we don't have the opportunity to tell somebody, and it can be kind of awkward, right? Like, you're friends with the person, you just like really admire somebody. You don't want to just sit there and be like, hey, I really admire you. You're a great person. I really enjoy but when you have an opportunity like this, and I just make it an intentional point in my show, I make sure that I essentially, what I call, give them their flowers, right? While they're here, I tell them on the air, I put it into the record, that I have an incredible amount of respect for them, that I am grateful for knowing them, that I appreciate their leadership and all the things that they do. And that's been incredible for me. It's been rewarding to be able to tell people that and know that that's going to, be out there, because oftentimes people don't get to hear that in real time. And so that's been really important for me. Now, this has really changed my leadership in other spaces, I would say, to have a show and to have the opportunity to talk to so many people in real time, because what I recognize is that people are so unique, and even in whatever context you see them in, whether it be your professional life, your service life, what other relationships you have and everything else, it gives you a different perspective on exactly how you interact with people. I'll give you a perfect example. So as I've talked to a number of people on my show, one of the things I've recognized is just how incredibly important and influential parenthood is of a child. And I've talked to them. And of course, from a counseling psychologist perspective, I recognize how important parenting is. I recognize how important the formative years of a young person's life are. But I've also recognized how damaging it can be to not have a good relationship with your parent early on in your life, and just how that influences people's lives. And I've heard people talk about that on the show, but I've also heard about people talk about how a great relationship and connection that they've had with a person early on in their life has been game changing. And so one of the things that's pushed me to do is just be a better father to my daughters, and just push myself even outside of my comfort zone. We get into these states of mind where it's like, well, this is how I'm going to interact with my child consistently, because this is what I know and this is what feels comfortable for me. And I've pushed myself outside of that comfort zone to, talk to my daughters about other things that are important to them rather than just things that are important to me. Because I recognize that there's this very finite time that we have as a parent to influence our children, and then it's gone. Right. And so what I've recognized is that for me, as I've learned more from my guests about how much of an influence their parents had on them and adults in their life and everything else, it's pushed me to try to be more open to how I interact with my daughters, because I recognize the finite nature of that time, and that they're going to one day be, whether it's sitting in someone's office, getting support for therapy purposes, or on somebody's show, they're going to be talking about, this is how my father interacted with me. This is how my mother interacted with me. These were some important formative things that happened early on in my life that shaped me. And so to have the opportunity to hear more from people about how important that has been, it's definitely pushed me to think outside of the box when it comes to parenting. It's also, impacted me on some of the community boards that I work on, and a lot of the service stuff that I do, and even at my job. It's just helped me to just see people and what they're experiencing, and humanizing them, because sometimes when we see people in different capacities, we don't humanize them because we see them first as like a person who works with you or a person who serves on a board with you. But all of these people have a story. All of these people have things that they've experienced over the course of their life. I honestly think everybody's been a hero for somebody. Everybody's been a leader for somebody. Everybody's experienced something. If you wake up in the morning and you get yourself out of bed and you get to experience life and you've gone through something, I consider that to be significant, right? Like, everybody may not see it that way. We might have different definitions of who's a hero and who's a leader and all the rest of that. But what my show has demonstrated to me is that everyone has an aspect of leadership in them. Everybody has gone through something. And again, I've had people on my show that I consider to be successful, that I consider to be leaders, that I consider to be people who have overcome unique things. But what it's even more so represented to me is that extraordinary people in some ways see themselves as ordinary, and they've done extraordinary things, but they still are ordinary people, right? And I think when you recognize that and you stop putting someone on a pedestal because you see them as, oh, this person's accomplished this or they've done that, or you start to recognize that doesn't only apply for people when it comes to that perspective, but it applies across the board. So I'll tell you, I get the opportunity to do a lot of service work, and I talked earlier on the show about, some of the folks that we get to serve through our community-facing events with our nonprofit Visionary Youth. And I just have to tell you, I see the people who show up who are seeking support, whether it be to our events where we give away food or where we give away toys. I see those people as leaders and heroes too. I see them as people who have had to overcome significant odds. We get to work with a lot of people who have immigrated to the United States from places, different countries. We have no idea the unspeakable things that have happened to some of them just to get here, how they've had to deal with these challenges of language barriers and putting their kids in school and not having enough food to put on the table. I see those people as showing up to our events as they are showing leadership. They're demonstrating that despite the challenges that they face, that they can be leaders and they can be there for their families, and they can actually show up and do something to try to do something about it. And their kids are better for it. And their kids are going to have the opportunity as they get older and they've experienced this adversity in their young life to see someone in their life show up and be a leader and be courageous and do things that it took to get them to where they are. And you see this perpetuate itself, right? Like, so extraordinary people have come from ordinary situations. I've seen athletes that people are like, oh my gosh, they're so amazing at what they do. And they've started out in a normal household, if not a household where there were other substantial challenges and abuse and all different types of things going on. But somehow athletics provided them with an outlet where they could go and be great there in that space. But then they go home, they have alcoholism in the household and abuse and all these different types of things, people dying in their neighborhoods and different things like that. But somehow they overcame that and they found their way into a sport, and that lifted them up, or they found their way into some other talent that they had. And then all of a sudden they found themselves committing, to that particular thing. And then, that somehow took them out of their circumstances. So it's really taught me, honestly, just this, that there's leadership everywhere you look. You just have to figure out how you can define what that leadership is. There's courage everywhere you look. There's people overcoming adversity. There's people dealing with challenges that we don't even think about, right? Sometimes our perspective, as I've talked to some people during this show, they've talked about the challenges that they've had to overcome. And it wasn't necessarily something that I would have ever thought would have been a challenge for somebody, but they said, no, this was a challenge for me because these were the other issues that were going on in my life at the time. So it's just been incredibly amazing to hear these stories of resilience from so many different people, and to be able to recognize that everybody has some level of challenge and resilience that they've demonstrated. They've had adversity that they've had to deal with and everything else. And so, you know, when I think about that and I just really reflect overall on the stories that I've heard so far and everything else, I mean, it's not really that I worry about how many people are listening to my show or how far it's going, but I think about the impact that it has when people do listen to the show. And I'm going to continue to champion it. I'm going to continue to share it, encourage people to listen, connect with it. And I know this will last for a long time, you know, where it will be a record that I was able to bring folks together to talk about these things, and they told their story, and there's a record of that story, and there's a record of me showing them respect and demonstrating kindness and humility by listening to their story. And that's really, to me, what success looks like for this show, is just having something to look back on, or something that I can share with, you know, my daughters when they're struggling with something. And I say, you know, I talked to a person and they kind of experienced something like that. You want to listen to this podcast, you know, maybe this will motivate you. And what I've recognized is that these things do take on a life of their own, and people get the opportunity to listen, they get the opportunity to share, and you just never know when you're really going to strike that right chord of somebody's getting something from it. And so it just makes me proud to have an opportunity to talk to people and allow them, you know, the space to share their story, and for guests to be able to hear that. And so that's how I really measure success. You know, it's not necessarily ratings. It's just the impact. It's the opportunity to have an impact on somebody's life, and for their life and their story to have an impact on the audience. And so we'll be talking more about this when we come back, and I'll give you a little bit more of a look behind the scenes, some of the surprises and things, challenges that have come up when we come back. You're listening to The Law of Lift with Dr. Lawrence Chatters on 93.7 The Ticket.
The savings continue all November long at Elway Power Sports of Lincoln. They're extending their red tag sale with machines priced at invoice plus $300. That's it. No freight, no setup, no extra fees. Plus 10% off snowplow kits, 10% off fly motocross gear, and 50% off all in-stock road tires. Elway Power Sports of Lincoln has you covered, all under one roof, with a large selection of side-by-sides, ATVs, motorcycles, and personal watercraft at their 27th and I-80 location. They can't wait to get you set up for the holiday season.
This Black Friday, it is time to hit your goals before the new year even starts. At Farrell's Extreme Body Shaping, get 40% off our next 10-week challenge, plus 6 weeks for free to kickstart your fitness journey. Start training December 1st with kickboxing, strength training, and personalized nutrition. So when our official challenge begins January 10th, you're already ahead of the game. Spots are limited. Don't wait for January to make your resolution. Start strong now. Visit fxbeatlincoln.com or stop by one of our 2 locations at South 40th and Yankee Hill or North 70th and Vine. Farrell's Extreme Body Shaping. Stronger starts here.
MWR is dedicated to building attractive, affordable steel buildings that exceed your expectations. From commercial to residential to agriculture storage, steel buildings are cost-effective, attractive, and versatile. Plus, they're a lasting investment and an ideal choice. MWR uses Sentinel Building Systems out of Albion and can service you all over the state and region. If you have interest in a steel building, post-frame building, or fencing, give MWR a call today at 402-980-5273 or go to mwrbuildingandfence.com.
Hi, Charlie Stone here, and it's that time of the year again. Time for the annual Happy Honda Days at Honda of Lincoln. With me on the line, Andy Goodyear, to tell us all about it.
The exciting news is we have more selection and more savings. We have over 400 new 2025 and 2026 Hondas to choose from, with a great opportunity to get year-end savings on every remaining new 2025.
Do you have some Happy Honda Day specials?
Sure do, Charlie. For example, you can lease a new 2025 Accord Sport Hybrid for just $349 a month, and we have financing from just 0% APR. We've also included over 125 pre-owned of all makes and models, And as always, our certified pre-owns are in this sale as well.
Well, maybe it's time you experience the best. The Honda of Lincoln way of doing business. 27th and Yankee Hill Road or online at hondaoflincoln.com.
This holiday season, give the gift of good taste with a gift card from Valentino's. During double discount days, double your discount from $5 to $10 free with a $50 gift card purchase. Valentino's handcrafted pizza has been a family favorite for generations, and our gift cards make the perfect holiday gift. And right now, during gift card double discount days, when you buy $50 in gift cards, get a $10 gift card free. Happy holidays from Valentino's.
Leaves are falling and temperatures are cooling down, but don't put your golf clubs away. Double Eagle Golf makes golf leagues and events possible year-round. Winter leagues begin on December 1st and are open for registration. Check out their deals on monthly memberships and schedule your Husker Watch parties, birthday or bachelor parties, corporate or team outings, or just a good old Saturday with the boys. That's all at Double Eagle Golf inside the Kinetic Sports Complex on West O Street. Book a tee time today or learn more at doubleeagle.golf.
Acreage owner getting ready for winter? Make it easy with John Deere compact tractors and gators from Acres Equipment. Add snow blowers, front blades, cabs, heaters, and loaders to tackle every chore. Right now, in-stock units are priced to move with competitive financing to fit your budget. Get winter ready today at acres.com. Acres Equipment, your acreage handled. Financing subject to approved credit with John Deere Financial. Not all customers qualify. See dealer for details.
Load up on meat and more this fall at the Mercado by Certified Piedmontese. From now through the end of November, Ferndale fresh turkeys are just $3.99 per pound and in limited stock, perfect for your holiday meals. Plus, you can stop by for lunch on Fired Up Thursday at the Mercado East or Fired Up Friday at the Mercado North. With locations at 84th and Havelock, 30th and Yankee Hill, and now 85th and Old Cheney in Lincoln, or 168th and Maple in Omaha, get to the Mercado today for the best meat in town.
If you are a business owner, I want you to think about the amount of time you've spent worrying about safety and security. Lincoln's own experts at Diode Technologies design custom solutions for security, communication, and so much more. From automated security to secure video conferencing, their team sits down with you to get to know you and what your business needs. Manage your operations and get notified when there is suspicious activity. Save time and cut back on stress. Diode Tech always keeps you in the know. Contact them today at 402-793-5124.
Now back to the Law of Lift with Dr. Lawrence Chatters on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Lincoln, Nebraska, we're back on the Law of Lift with Dr. Lawrence Chatters, and I am just being absolutely reflective today, talking about what it's been like to be in a position to have a show. And I know a lot of you listen to the radio and you're thinking to yourself, gosh, if I had the opportunity to have my own show, this is what I would do. This is how I would do my show. And, you know, that was always the way that I looked at it. And what I recognized pretty quickly, as in anything else in life, is that things are way harder than they look. I will tell you what, I remember, and this is just a quick story. I'll get back into some of the behind the scenes challenges and surprises, different things like that I've experienced. But when I worked in Nebraska athletics a few years back, one of the other things that I do in life is I'm a DJ and I love playing music. And that's something that I've done for 20 years. Actually, this year, it'll be like 24 years that I've been DJing. And so I love music. I love to play music. I mean, it's just something that brings me great joy. And one of the things that I saw, because I was, executive in the athletic department, I'd go to the basketball games and I see that there's a DJ there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that looks like it would be a lot of fun, right? And so I reached out to the marketing and fan experience people. And I said, hey, I wouldn't mind DJing at the game. I could do it if you want me to. And I'll do it for free. I never said I'd do it for free, but they never paid me. Anyways, probably because I was working in the department. But so I get out there. And, I've got all my stuff set up and absolutely I know how to DJ, but then all of a sudden, here come the parameters. Okay. The parameters are usually you get about 30 seconds to play a track. You have to do it on demand. There's certain times that you get to play. There's other times that you'd love to play that you don't get to play. You have to be there about 2 hours in advance because the basketball teams warm up for an hour and a half prior to the game. And so you're just playing music there. Nobody's in the stadium, the arena. Then when everybody does come in the arena, it's extremely loud and you have to listen for your cues. And what I quickly recognized is that was way harder than I would have ever thought it would be. And even though I had the skill set as a DJ to play music, it wasn't necessarily just transferable to playing music in that environment. And so, long story short there is that you might look at things and you might think, oh my gosh, I could talk to anybody on the radio. I could do this. It's not as easy as you think it is, right? And so when I started planning this show, and honestly, it was just kind of like I mentioned in the first hour, just a quick idea that came to me, and I'm like, okay, I love planes, kind of this concept of psychology and positive psychology and telling stories that are really, inspirational. Then you realize you have to plan something every single week and you have to be ready for it. Even if you're in the state of mind, like sometimes you're just like, you're having a tough weekend, right? You still got to go be on the air for 2 hours, right? So it's not nearly as easy as you might think it is. There's a lot of logistics. There's some challenges and things like that come up. And my prep routine really, as I think about it, is coming up with who I'm going to interview first. And so some weeks that's easier than others because there are certain times of the year, of course, that people are more available. There's a secret in radio too and streaming where you can actually pre-record your show, which is, pretty awesome actually, because it's kind of more of a controlled environment. And so it gives you the chance to think a little bit more. You're not live on the air and having to be so strict to some of the breaks and stuff like that. And so sometimes I'll pre-record my show. I actually don't mind pre-recording my show sometimes with people because if they're not used to being on the radio, it gives you a little bit more of an intimate feel. Like when you're sitting in the studio here at 93.7, you're like literally looking out onto O Street and kind of feels a little bigger than it is. And so, and there's also just kind of some other pieces that, make people feel nervous. And I talked about in the first hour that some people you think might be really, really good on the radio, they get super nervous, and I get it because it's just hard to just talk, right? And then it's kind of difficult to pull stuff out of them. So, that's definitely a challenge, but, sometimes we'll do kind of pre-recorded shows. Other times it's on the air and live. There's been some really great surprises for me. One of the people that I interviewed that, I didn't necessarily know was going to do such a great job because it's kind of like, he's not on radio all the time, was a former Husker. His name's Tyron Ferguson. And this guy, he's just a great person. Him and I worked together when he was a student athlete, kind of, I provided an internship opportunity for him with my energy drink company. And he's just a super outgoing guy, just very confident, has always had this clear view and vision of what he wants to do in his life. He was such a great guest. He talked a lot about growing up in New Orleans and all the things he experienced and everything. I just truly enjoyed that interview. He just was super smooth on the radio, and I just really enjoyed talking to him. So shout out, Tyron. You did a great job, man. And I just truly enjoyed talking to you and getting to know more about your story and all the challenges you overcame, and just your authenticity and your vulnerability when you were on my show was amazing. And so thanks for that. And that's been, like I said, there's some surprises, and sometimes there's other people. I won't talk about the people who I would have expected to be, way more open and talkative that weren't. But, it's just, you watch people in that space. And again, some people have just never been on the radio. You watch them in that space in real time, go through some things, and you're just kind of like, wow, this is incredible. There was one guy, a surprise to me. I was talking to him. He's a former Marine. He's an executive at a organization here in town. And as he talked about his journey, and he talked about, being an executive in like a Fortune 500 company, by the way, the guy does not have a college degree. And not that the college degree is everything, but just how surprising that was to me that I heard that and realized how incredible he has to be where he is. He mentioned that, but then on the other side of it, he mentioned the fact that his daughter has her PhD, and it just brought him to tears to think about that spectrum of him not having a degree and his daughter having her PhD, and him being able to provide her with a life where she could do that, and her grit and overcoming things to get to that point. That was just a really unique surprise for me to watch this grown man who was a Marine, a former Marine, sit on the air and cry thinking about his daughter. It was incredible. all of these different types of things, the questions that come up. Honestly, it's been challenging sometimes to be on the air and hear some of these stories and not get emotional myself, because, I'm a pretty emotional person. I like to sit in that space emotionally with people. And at the same time, I have a job to do. I have to kind of get to the next question, and I need to be able to, work through that. That's something that's been tough. And so you don't see that. Sometimes you might hear me become a bit emotional on the air, but it's tough to like sit in some of those spaces with people as they're having their own experience and just be there to support them and kind of pull them through it. That's been really unique to be able to do that. One of the opportunities I couldn't get through without getting emotional was talking to my wife in the streaming studio. And it was just such an intimate moment where we were talking about being young and just so like caring about, the importance of our family and just wanting to do the right thing and just challenge, like having so many challenges, which we knew we had those challenges. I just wasn't able to keep it together. So, but those are some of the things that, it's just kind of, you see some of those, opportunities, and you just kind of look back and you're like grateful that you could be authentic in those moments. When I think about some things that have been a challenge logistically, and what I've learned from things going wrong is that, sometimes people aren't, going to follow through, and sometimes they're not going to maybe show up. And so having an extra show in the can has always been a great thing. You can kind of put that thing on the air and be ready to go. Now I have a lot more content, and so it's kind of nice to consistently have the opportunity to replay a show if I needed to and everything else. But, sometimes those things happen. People have shown up late, which I mentioned. I've had people who have shown up with colds, and, they're in there coughing and all kinds of stuff. And it's just like, that's not good for radio, right? But it is what it is, right? So there's been some funny times where I'm just sitting there like, okay. I think about the challenges of just day-to-day life and some of the struggles that I've experienced even in my day-to-day life and the work and everything else. And people always ask me the question, gosh, like, how do you stay positive all the time? Like, I have to talk on my show every single week about being positive and like interview people and everything else. And, honestly, my show gives me an incredible amount of energy. Like, when I have the opportunity to come in here and actually talk to people about the challenges they've overcome, it gives me joy. Like, I've never actually felt like I'm plodding through a show. It's always been like, wow, I get to do this, and it's been amazing. And so my show gives me energy. It gives me so much hope, and I hope that's what it does for other people. And, there's just kind of that piece too of like the improvisational nature of it too. So you're just kind of like, you never know where it's going to go, right? Because I'm not necessarily stepping in here with like a specific roadmap of what I want somebody to say. And so that keeps it fresh too, is just kind of like hearing things and then kind of like reacting in the moment. That's been great. Honestly, I have to send a shout out to the staff here at the radio. Just having production and having somebody right there in the studio with you every single time that I step into the space has been amazing. That is great. I mean, you don't have any idea how important great production is until you don't necessarily have great production, right? And there's challenges in post-production and everything else. And so shout out to the staff here for providing great production and having the opportunity to create a show that is high quality with the equipment that they have here, their follow through on always being here when we need them to be, and everything else. And so, I just really have made this a part of my life. Now it's been 3 months as a psychologist. I know it takes 21 days to create a habit. Certainly been way more than 21 days. It's something I look forward to every single week. Definitely, I look forward to continuing to offer people a positive vision of the future. And I see this show continuing to be an important piece of my legacy in putting out positive content that people can tap into when they're seeking support and seeking a lift. The Law of Lift continues to develop. I'm going to continue to develop the format of it. I might change things up. I'm probably going to try to do some more Zoom calls with people because I have a wide network, and so I can actually have people Zoom in and talk to them on the air. Some unique people, continue to listen to my fan base of people and hearing the stories that they want to hear more of, like who they want to hear from, more people in the community. There's just so many different things that I'm excited about. So I've just made a personal commitment to this, and I'm committing to continuing to host this show. Never had any clue just how challenging it would be to do something weekly that happens to be a 2-hour show and actually continue to do it and follow through on it. But it's been so rewarding, and it's been challenging. And I feel like I've had the opportunity to tell people stories and hear from people who I have a significant amount of respect for. So I want you to reflect on just what you've gotten from this show and how beneficial it's been to be able to hear positive things, how it's lifted you up. And if you would please share this show, talk to people about it, tell them that there is positive stuff happening in the world, because we often get caught up in the negative. Share the show, talk to people about it, think about your own life and all the contributions that you make consistently to humanity. And I want you to find joy in your overcoming adversity and all the wonderful things that you've done. And I want you to share your story. And if you'd like to reach out to the show, there's a text line. You can reach out on the text line. You can send a message to me however you'd like to. But if you have recommendations of people who should be on the show or who you want to hear from, I love to hear that. But I've just benefited so much from this. It's been extremely rewarding for me. It certainly lifted my spirit on a weekly basis. And as I always say, and as I kind of bring this to an end, I hope that you lift off in your life, and I hope that you find positivity in the things that you do. And I hope this show has helped you in some way. If it helps one person, that's enough for me. Thanks for listening to The Law of Lift with Dr. Lawrence Chatters on 93.7 The Ticket.